Good morning to everyone. My name is Maria Gomez, and I want to welcome you to our webinar, Increase Sales Through and Thanks to the Internet. Before we start, I want to share with you our agenda. First, I want to present some simple rules for our webinar. Second, I will present very briefly our company Intergy Consulting, and also our speaker, Andrés Gómez. The third point of our agenda is called Internet Strategies. After this, Andrés will talk about a very important subject on any Internet strategy, that is aligning it with the physical strategy. The fifth point is how to dynamize the Internet strategy and evolve it. After that, Andrés will explain the next step. On the seventh point on our agenda, we will talk about a surprise we have for the assistants to this webinar, and it is how to receive a free micro consulting service from our company Intergy Consulting. Finally, we will answer questions from our assistants. So let's start with some webinar rules. The idea is that you follow these simple rules in order to take advantage of all the information we will present to you on this session. Try to sit on a place where you are not going to be interrupted. If it is possible, turn off your cell phone or at least select the silence mode. Close your email client to avoid being interrupted. We suggest you connect to a good internet network. Close all programs. In order to have an excellent visualization of the presentation, maximize your screen. Pay attention to our speaker's presentation. You don't need to take notes of this webinar. A copy of this presentation and the video of it will be sent. Other suggestions we have are the following. Don't wait till the end of the presentation to ask your questions, because you might forget them. Make them as soon as you have them through the left side panel of your screen. You can also send your questions via Twitter using the hashtag #WebinarInOfIntergy. Remember, InOfIntergy with double N and Y at the end. We will try to answer all the questions as far as possible and as time allows us. If we don't answer one of your questions or you have an additional one, please contact us. The length of this webinar is 45 minutes. Now we will continue with some information about us. Let's start with our speaker. His name is Andrés Gómez. He is a consultant in business innovation, specifically on the areas of internet and technology strategies. He has been university teacher on prestigious universities in Bogotá, Colombia. He's a public speaker and also writer, columnist, and advisor for important newspapers and magazines. He is blogger and has been entrepreneur. His academic training is computer and system engineering with a minor in business administration, and he is also an e-commerce specialist, both of them of Universidad de los Andes. He has been a digital entrepreneur since he is age 15, which adds to more than 18 years of experience. Now, I want to present our company Intergy Consulting. We are a boutique consultancy company that has been working for many years supporting different companies in finding and designing their strategies in the areas of technology and internet as part of their business innovation strategy. We don't have a pre-designed strategy that will fit in every type of company. Instead, we start with the real needs of each organization, their clients and users, and the environment, and according to it, we design a strategy that will bring results to the company. We have some core values that make us different. As I said before, we focus on customer-specific solutions. We always look for the highest value and return for our customer in order to transform its technology and internet presence into an investment instead of an expense. We will always be guided by indicators, metrics, and time as an integral part of the strategy. It is also important to highlight that we will always start with business elements and not technical solutions. The tactic always comes after the strategy has been designed. As an example, we will always propose to think about the web pages or presence in social networks after we have designed the company's strategy. Now, Andres will start his presentation talking about internet strategies.
Thank you, Maria, for the presentation. Good morning, everybody. It is a pleasure to have you with us here today. We're going to talk about a very interesting strategies and topic, and is how to increase sales through and thanks to the internet. And the first thing you have to keep in mind is that although web pages and Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, and whatever you wanted to call it are very important, those are tactics, those are executions, those come after. So I want to center this presentation around the word internet strategies. But why internet strategies? That's the first question maybe most of you are making at this moment. So we'll see a little bit later about this topic. I have been studying this topic for many, many years, and I've seen many, many reasons why companies open web pages, create a social media presence, do email marketing, and a lot more things. And I've come to the conclusion that there are four basic reasons why companies create presence in the internet. The first is because it is a trend. Everybody has it. I don't want to be left behind. My competition has it, so I can't be left behind. So I have to create this presence. So that's the trend. The second is closely related to the first one, but I like to keep them apart, and it's because of the client. The client I can say it pressures us to have some internet presence. I'm sure you have heard your clients, so what's your web page? Where can I find more information about this product or service? Or something like, I can't believe it, you don't have a Facebook web page? So the clients puts pressures on us to have this internet presence. The third reason doesn't apply to everyone. In fact, it is just for some special industries that are very protected by the state, like the health sector, the financial sector. And in many countries, I've seen that there are laws or there are decrees that require these companies to have certain internet presence. And if for some strange reasons they didn't have it, now they have to create it. The fourth reason, and at this point I hope you see that this is the main reason, is because it is a strategy. It makes sense, financial sense, economic sense, marketing sense, or whatever, to have an internet presence, but again, guided by a strategy. And I always say this, the strategy should be the main reason, maybe 95% of the reason, and the other three might be interesting as a backup, but not as main reasons. These three reasons should account for about 10 or 5% of the reasons. And as I said before, about 90-95% is due to the strategy. I've shared this graphic with many of my readers, many of the people that go to my lectures. And in the first part of the graphic, you see how most companies today treat their internet and actually their technology presence. I've said for many years that every company has a strategy. It may be very, very basic. It may be something like survival. I have to sell because I have to survive and I have to make an X amount of money to pay for my children's health, education, food, and other things. And there is an appendix called internet. And you hear many companies talk about, we have an internet presence, but that's problem of the marketing guys. That's a problem of the technology area. First of all, it's not a problem. It's a strategy. So I come to the second part of this graphic, and is how can we incorporate the internet within the corporate strategy? Later on, I will give an example of how this can be achieved, but I invite you to change your mind if you haven't done it before and focus on the second part of the graphic where the corporate strategy includes the internet strategy. As I've said already, the corporate strategy exists on every company. Every single company has a strategy. And there are complementary strategies that should be aligned to the corporate strategy. Of course, you have the physical strategy, which usually is the largest, and within the physical strategy, you have the marketing strategy, the sales strategy, the human resources strategy. A lot of strategies are always there, and usually they're always aligned. They're aligned because they want to reach the same objective, the same goals. There's also the technology strategy, and within the technology strategy, you will find the internet strategy. Usually, this doesn't exist on many companies. As I said before, it is as an appendix. But the fact is that the technology strategy should be perfectly aligned with the corporate and the physical strategy. And then you have other complementary strategies that should also be aligned. The idea is that it doesn't matter if what you're doing is in the physical world, if it's it online, whatever you want to make it, everything should be aligned and we should all be reaching the same objectives. So, again, the question, why internet strategies? Why internet strategies are so important? And the fact is that if you have an internet strategies, and this is a good piece of advice, whatever internet presence you have, it should be far beyond a website, a social network, an online store, email marketing, whatever you want to call it. This is just the tactic, this is just the execution. You should consciously define what do you want in the internet. And the fact is that, for example, you shouldn't say, what I need is a website. Yeah, probably you need a website, but that's the least of your problem. Why do you want a website? How should that website be? What elements are going to be unique for your website? You should answer all those things before you execute the presence. It should be highly dynamic. Your clients are dynamic, the market is dynamic, and as we'll see later on, there are other elements that will put you on the road of dynamisms. It should respond to your user needs, and here's another mistake many companies do. The fact is that today many companies create the internet presence based on what their leaders want. I'm talking about the CEO, the marketing director, maybe the sales director, and usually what the graphic designer wants to do. This might work, and in some cases it does, but the best thing to do is ask your users, your clients, your future clients, if your users are government agencies, nonprofit organizations, distributors. Well, there are many actors that you should respond to. Always measure. Since we're talking about an strategy, you always have to have metrics. How am I going? Am I going better? Am I reaching what I plan to accomplish? So always measure. Earlier in the past graphics, I said this in another words, and it's help and complement the corporate strategy. Internet strategy has to be 100% aligned to whatever you define in the corporate and the physical strategy. And I mentioned it earlier, this is not a problem. This is a strategic resource, and you should treat it that way. This is a simple metaphor about building construction and what happens when you create an internet presence without a strategy. For building anything, a house, a building, whatever, there are generally two roads. The first road is you only call the foreman and execute and say, foreman, construct this house. I want it to be of three stories high, and this is my budget. And maybe he does a good job. He probably will make a good job. Road number two, before you call the foreman and the rest of the team, you call the architect, the engineering, and tell them to design what you want to construct. After they finish the designs and they give you several options regarding cost, regarding different styles of design, and a lot more things, then you call the executors. And the executors in this case should be monitored, should be led by, again, those team of architects and engineers. Road number one would probably be shorter and cheaper, but it has a much higher risk involved. Maybe if the first flood, the first earthquake, the house is not prepared because it hasn't been designed for these elements. Road number two initially will be longer. Initially, it will be much more expensive, but usually if a flood comes, an earthquake comes, or anything else strange comes, it will properly withstand any of those events. Same thing happens in the internet. Today, most companies are hiring executors, some which are great executors, but they don't do an analysis, a strategy, objectives, metrics, indicators before. So you have this is like throwing a coin to the air. Maybe you are successful, or maybe you're not. Rule number two doesn't guarantee you success, but the risk is limited, and you're doing things the way they should be done.
We make a brief pause just to introduce the surprise I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar, a free micro consulting. For attending this webinar, our company Innovintergy Consulting wants to analyze the internet strategy of your company. This micro consulting is valued at $500. At the end of the webinar, I will explain the rules in order to be selected for this helpful service. Andres, please go ahead with your presentation.
Thank you, Maria. We're in the second part of this webinar, and I wanted to talk about the importance of aligning the physical and the internet strategies. It has to be perfectly aligned. I already mentioned before the importance, but I wanted to illustrate this with a little exercise of how this can be done. Let's say that for 2016, your company's already creating some metrics or what they want to achieve next year, and this is the first time that you want to tell the internet strategy to be part of this macro strategy, to call it by some name. For 2016, you are proposing that you want to increase sales by a 10%, increase a market share by a 20%, which is a large number, but you think you can accomplish it. You also want to increase 12% in the number of customers you have and increase customer retention by 8%. These are just four goals. I'm sure you will have many, many more, but for the exercise, I just wanted to include these four. So the question is, okay, internet, how are you going to help us to achieve these goals? And since the physical and the internet strategies are 100% aligned, internet has to reply. This might be the first time we ask this for the internet. The best scenario possible is that for internet we have historic figures. If we have historic figures, it will be much easier to determine what will be the weight for internet. But maybe this is the first time, so we're basically just inventing figures, trying to have a goal, and that's okay. As I say, as the years evolve and you have more metrics and more indicators, you will become much more precise giving these numbers. So for the first item, we want to increase sales next year by 10%. So we ask the internet guys, okay, guys, in this 10%, how much are you gonna help us? And they reply, boss, we're kind of new. We don't have too much experience, and I'm a kind of a shy guy. So for this first year, let's just say, okay, 15% of those 10%. That means 1.5%. So the rest is for the physical world. The physical world has an 85% on those 10%. Okay, now guys, so to increase market share, we propose 20%. Internet guys, what's your proposition for 2016? And the internet guys say, well, boss, I'm a little more confident about this one. I'll help you with 25%. That means that from that 20%, 5% will be internet. and the remaining 15% will be on the physical world. And the same deal goes for increased customer retentions. In this case, internet says, oh, I'll help you in 50%. So increasing customer will be 6% and increased customer retention will be 4%. As I said before, this is just an exercise, is something that I just invented to illustrate the case. But when you work with this, when you have metrics, when you are working with this every year, you will become much more precise and have metrics that actually work for you. Again, and I can't stress this enough, physical strategy has to be aligned with the internet strategy. In other words, internet strategy should help and collaborate with whatever you're doing in the physical strategy. Actually, and this is something that happens and many people don't see it, whatever you do in the internet affects the physical world. And the same in the opposite. Whatever you do in the physical world has an effect in the internet. So they are not two worlds apart, they are quite related, and you should understand it this way. And just to end this, you must put aside what is called episodic thinking internet as one aisle, physical as another aisle. They are not aisles. They are joined, they are symbiotic, so you have to think of them this way. If you're thinking about internet strategies, you always have to lead your strategies with, of course, indicators and metrics. You have to see what is happening. And one of the great things about the internet is that many things are measured. But, and here comes the problem, although there are many metrics, we usually don't analyze them. You have to have a clear pathway. Where am I going? What are my goals? What do I want to achieve? And what do you want to achieve in the long, medium, and long run? There's a comment I want to make about the long run, because the long run in internet is not that long. More than 3 years is almost impossible, so maybe a long run for you would be 3 years. You have to have aims. What do you want to meet? Where do I want to be in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years? If I'm investing money in the internet strategy and in the tactic, okay, I'm investing money. What am I going to produce about this? You have to cross that data. That's one of the other problems. And as I said before, there are many metrics in the internet, but one of the largest, most complex problems we see every day is that companies don't cross their metrics. For instance, if last weekend you decided to create a promotion and you told about it via your Facebook page, and this made people come to your physical stores, but you didn't realize or you didn't measure how many people actually came thanks to that promotion you made in Facebook, well, you're not doing that much. Sure, you probably sold more, but you have to measure precisely how many people came into your stores exclusively because you did something in Facebook. And that can be done quite easily. For example, you can give those Facebook users, say, go to any of my stores, and when you're in my store, use the coupon Facebook. Tell the attendant, the clerk, I want to use the coupon Facebook. For the user, that will give him a discount, let's say 5, 10% or whatever. But if you have a good piece of software, a good sales software, your software will tell you, sales increase whatever percent this weekend, and we had 100 use of the coupon Facebook. So that's an information that will be very interesting for you. Then cross the barriers of the physical world to the internet. Many people are afraid of this, and as I said before, these barriers don't exist. Most people believe it is natural that these barriers exist, but the opposite is true. The barriers don't exist, and most of your users uh, use all the time cell phones. They are connected to the internet. They don't have these walls, so you have to also think that way. All this lead them with financial indicators. That is the first step, but also other types of indicators. Client retention, top of mind, top of heart. Well, there are many you have to analyze to make this strategy in the physical and the internet world a success. And always align all your media. I don't care what media you're using, including your physical stores. Maybe you're selling through big department chains, or maybe you have a phone call center. You're using Facebook, you're using Twitter. They have to be aligned. Align all the media. I don't care whatever it is. Align it. One of the other big problems I usually see from big companies is that they spend many times millions of dollars promoting a product through TV, in prime time, in magazines, in physical media, and they usually add www.mycompany.com where they can find more information about this product. But this has a major flaw, and is that if it's a big company with many products, if you send them to your homepage, you're asking the user to search for the information of that specific product. It will be much easier if you send them to www.mycompany.com/product, and they go directly to the product. So that's something that can be easily arranged. The next item for this agenda is Dynamize the internet strategy. And as I said before, by definition, internet is quite dynamic, and it should also be the definition of your internet strategy. There are some elements that are always changing. They are changing every day, every week, every month. The internet, to start, it changes every day. Every day there are new platforms, there are new ways to communicate. Some platforms appear, some die. Also, the market is quite dynamic. And in fact, in the market, you are competing not only with your traditional competitors, but you're also competing with people from the other side of the world who have a similar product, maybe cheaper. So it's quite dynamic. The user, our consumer, our client, is also very dynamic. And you can bet it, your competition will also be dynamic. So the message here is that you should be quite proactive and have an internet strategy that, although, as I said earlier, long-term strategy in the internet won't be more than 2 or 3 years. You have to think in the long overhaul and how you can change the strategy over time and keep it updated for many years. It is quite vital to listen and understand the market, and, if you will, try to anticipate the moves of the market. What's coming? What are the next tendencies? Those things should be considered. Again, be proactive, not reactive. Here comes into play a model that is quite popular, that is the MVP model. That's MVP for minimum viable product. The minimum viable product tells us that maybe you have a great idea for an internet strategy, for a product that will be quite expensive and it will take a lot of time to develop. The MVP models invite you to launch your service with the minimum, the bare essentials, and there you start to construct the other elements. This will be much cheaper. You can reach the market much faster. If for some reason what you created doesn't work, well, you lose some money, but not that huge amount of money. Plus, the MVP model works as a real-time marketing research, because you're listening to the users, and the users' feedback is what you're using to create the additional elements of your platform. This is a trial and error method. In fact, if you don't make any mistakes, I bet you're doing something wrong. You have to make mistakes. Nothing will be all well. All elements will be smooth. There will be some stuff that just won't work, and this is just fine. If you're making changes, if you're adding elements to your strategy, always justify them with figures, and always your goals, your strategic north in mind, and never deviate from the physical strategy. Always keep in mind your physical strategy. So what comes next? What is that big next step? How am I going to make it? Because, well, this subject appears very natural, very simple, but if it's so simple, why so many companies fail? Why so many web pages fail? And the fact is that with this webinar, we want to make more money. So here's the next step. First thing you should keep in mind is that if you haven't done so, it is time to create the internet strategy of your organization. It is a vital step. Define a clear path, the indicators, the metrics, and your goals for the long, medium, and long term. If you already have something in the internet, because it's quite possible, try to translate it to a strategy. This is not the logic or the simplest way. It should be done the other way around. But if this is so, well, try to do it. Try to convert it to translate it into a strategy. Measure everything. And do not only measure, evaluate constantly. As said earlier, also cross your data with other indicators to see what happens. Get expert advice, and here it is in red because many times we fail in this. There are great people in the market that have a great deal of experience, but the barrier for entering this world is not too high. So there are great advisors and there are advisors that are not so great. And last, be part of our free micro consulting, which Maria will tell in the following slides.
Before we start with the questions, I want to present the rules to receive a free micro consulting. Remember, we want to share our knowledge and experience with you by analyzing your internet strategy. This service is valued at $500. In order to be selected, you must meet the following requirements. Your company must be legally constituted. The senior management of your company must be willing to invest 2 hours of their time. Remember that internet is part of the company strategy. Therefore, the senior management must be involved in it. Wanting to improve the internet presence in order to dramatically increase sales. Be located in South or Central Florida in the United States. If your company is in another region, please contact us because we will open these spaces in other regions. Send us an email telling us you meet the requirements and you're interested, including the following information: your name, job position, the name of your company, the corporate website, social network, and other internet presence you have done, location, including the city and the country, the landline, cell phone, corporate email, and any additional comment you have. Please send us that information to the mail info@i2.gy. At the end, I will present once again this slide so that you can send us the email with all the information we require. Now we want to finish with some questions we have received from people attending this webinar. Andres, the first question is a community manager an internet strategist?
I will say no. A community manager is someone that executes the strategy, which is quite different from the strategist. He has a huge role. He has a huge role in the company. He's quite important in the company. He's a strategic position, but he shouldn't be the person creating this strategy. Uh, Usually, he doesn't have the experience, the knowledge, the business knowledge, the technological knowledge. But I will end by saying that he's a very important he has a very important position in the company.
Okay. Another interesting question we received is, you said the internet strategy must be dynamic. For a medium-sized company, is it enough to analyze it once a year?
Well, I hope it should be more, and actually, it doesn't matter the size of the company. We recommend that companies, no matter what size they are, they create a permanent committee of different job positions and areas: marketing, sales, human resources, financial, top management, etc., etc., and that they meet at least once or twice a month. In the worst case scenario, maybe once every 2 months, but they should meet frequently, and also very important, open the debate for ideas. Maybe people that don't belong to the committee, they can also raise their hands and say, I've seen this, why don't we do something similar? It's quite important to listen everybody, to listen to all the actors.
Okay, Andres, I think you will like this question. They are asking us if it is a good idea to hire at the same time the company that defines the strategy and the company that will construct the web page.
Well, first, there are many companies that try to do that. In our particular model at Enough Engineering Consulting, we don't like that. Why? Because we believe that they are two different elements. Eh, I've seen, unfortunately, some companies that do the consulting and then execute, and when they are defining the execution, they sell the client some elements that maybe are not that vital or they do not need, because that consultant, since he's also a seller, he wants to sell more. It's quite natural. Of course, there are companies that are quite ethical and won't do this, but I prefer in our model that these two elements are apart.
Andres, we have another question regarding budget for internet strategies. The question is, how much money do you think we should ask for on our annual budget for an internet strategy?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it depends. That would be my answer. Of course, creating a good, well-defined internet strategy is not that cheap. It costs money, but it depends on the size of the company, on what they're trying to achieve, how complex uh, the company is. For example, it would be quite different to make a strategy for a small company that maybe has one or two products and is located just on a certain city, than to create it for a multinational company that has many business units, that has many companies within it. And I would say that the minimum, maybe including the strategy and maybe a little part of execution, will be around 50,000 to $100,000 minimum. Of course, thinking that this money has to be returned in the form of new profit in the medium and long term. Always, this is not an investment that you will lose. No, it will produce new money.
Okay, we are running out of time. I'm going to ask you two more questions we received. Someone asked the following: Andres, I have been using Google Analytics metrics as my webpage metrics. Is it enough or should I seek for new tools?
That's another good question. Google Analytics has in some way become the non-official standard of web metrics, and it is quite useful. It's a very good tool. However, it lacks some information. For instance, let's say you have an online store And for some reason, because you did a promotion on social networks, because whatever reason, I don't care, uh, more traffic came in. Google Analytics will tell you that, this weekend we had an increase, we have a pike in 10% in the incoming traffic. Okay, that's nice. But if you're selling online, okay, so that 10%, how much money more did you sell? Was it proportional? Was it incremental? What do you want to do? So again, you always have to cross this very good information of Google Analytics and other tools with other business metrics and analyze them. When you cross them and you analyze them, that is the moment when they actually have the big sense, and that's when they become very useful for your business.
Finally, we have this question. If I implement a good strategy, when should I start seeing financial results?
Oh, that's a great question. And again, there's not a perfect answer. It always depends. We've had clients who've had crossed the equilibrium point, who have started to have some profit within 6 months or of their platform being online. But for some, it will take maybe a year, maybe 18 months, maybe a little bit more. But it shouldn't be more than 2 years, or a little bit more, or actually you're not doing a great deal. As we see the market in so many countries, if you do the right thing and maybe just a little bit better than what your competitor is doing, you will see great results in probably 3 6 months, or at least in the few first months you will see that your investment and creating the strategy was worth your while. And of course, in the medium and in the long run, you will see that the strategy was the best decision you've ever made.
Thank you, Andres, for your presentation and for sharing your knowledge with all of us. Thank you, everyone, for attending our webinar. Have a very nice day.